Hello, and a very warm welcome to all our listeners. We're here with Hildemar today for another amazing episode of Kaffee und Kuchen with Internationals. And I'm very happy to be welcoming Hildemar today because we're also very close friends. Almost since our first day in Germany, I think. So before I go on with the interview, Hilde, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes, so I'm Hildemar, short Hilde. I'm from Venezuela. I've been in Germany for 10 years already, exactly. I'm 36, and yeah, it means we've been friends for 10 years already. So this is great. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited to be here, to be your first guest. Uh, I don't think it's going to be the first episode, and if it is, then it's also okay.
No, you're not the first episode, but you are my first guest, so I'm also very happy to be doing this with you.
Nice, nice.
Ilse, you said that you moved from Venezuela, right? And of course, I sort of lived through a lot of your experiences with you, but maybe for our listeners, what was your let's to start with something light, right? What was your first, let's say, kind of culture shock when you landed in Germany?
I think I had a cultural shock 2 years after being in Germany, to be honest. Because when I arrived, I think I was so full of excitement, and we were living in campus, and it was everything international. So we had this beautiful bubble, right, where everything was spoken in English. When we arrived, we had that in common. We didn't speak any German. And then we kept living in our bubble, and it was in my case with my first job, German job, where I really had the cultural shock. And it was how, I don't want to speak negatively, but let's say how close people were, right? Like I had a couple of jobs in Venezuela, and for example, during lunchtime, everybody has lunch together, and it's like making jokes, having fun. I don't know, then where I did my internship and my thesis, it was also an international environment, and it was like that. Like at the lunchtime, people would go through the hallway, knocking the door. Hey, it's lunchtime. We would go all together. We would hang out after work, not all the time, but it would happen. And then I come to this place where I thought it's a more international environment, but no, actually, when I started working there, I was the only one in the department who wasn't German, and specifically South German, because I have experience with different like now I work in another region and it's different. But in this case, it was very close. I had to make all the effort to integrate. And that was for me a shock, like during lunchtime, I was on my own. Or, yeah, people would, I don't know, even talk within themselves about my project, but they wouldn't approach me directly, and they didn't mean something bad. They wanted to support me, but yeah, they were also too shy to approach me. So after having done the effort, after having gone through all that, which took me like a year and a half and a lot of energy and some tears as well, I understood it's not about me. It's just they are too shy. They are too scared just to approach new people. So that was a tough cultural shock, to be honest.
I
Yeah.
think it's a very great point that you made. That you also mentioned briefly that now you're working in another region in Germany, and things are a little bit different, right? And I think even in my experience, I've had this. I've had workplaces where everybody was like, "Hey, we're going for lunch. Do you want to join us?" And where they were a little bit more shy or I don't know, reserved, let's say, right? maybe it has something to do with the region, maybe it doesn't, but I think it's a very good message that you sent out, which is it really depends on the people, and there's no rule of thumb that, these kind of Germans are social and the other ones are shy, or,
Yeah.
you have to figure it out. Just sort of be ready for that, I guess. Maybe what.
I think something I'd like to point out is that I let myself be led by how they behave. So I
Mm,
started kind of behaving like that. And you know me, I'm outgoing. I like to socialize. I like to make random conversation with people. And so it was my first job in German, and my German wasn't still that good. So I was doing everything in German. So I also put this extra pressure on me.
mm,
And I think I could have let go of the pressure a bit by trying to interact with my colleagues in English as well. Like,
mm,
hey, you have these tips about my project. Would you mind just speaking about this part in English with me? And then we switch back to German, kind of like
mm-hmm,
take off the pressure a little bit, because this also took me out of my personality, to be honest. And then it took me a few years also to come back to my personality. Um, so if other people are going through the same right now, or are struggling, just don't be afraid to be yourself. If you are
mm,
honest to yourself, then at least I believe the process, the transition is easier, because you're not getting out of who you are. You are not playing like the double role of
mm.
integrating and then integrating on top of that as someone who's not you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really great point because I guess as internationals, we try really hard, right? We try maybe a bit too hard to sort of find our way, to see how we belong in this place, and I think you made a very good point that to integrate does not mean to lose your personality, right? It does not mean that you have to be like someone else, or you have to have a poker face the whole time, for instance. It really makes it more difficult, I guess, right, to integrate if you don't even know who you're supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, something that helped me, and I think that's where things started to change and get better, is that they are not aware that they are behaving this way. And I remember one day after work, some of my colleagues were in we had like a small kitchen next to the labs, and they were celebrating because something could happen to another colleague, and they invited me to come over. And after a couple of drinks, I said, what the heck, I'm gonna let it out. Like they asked me something about why another colleague doesn't come to I don't know, to certain activity or something like that. I don't remember. And that was the moment where I thought, I hope I find the proper words. And I was like, you guys don't make it easy at all. We are here, we are new. Yes, we did our degree over here, but that doesn't mean that all the German culture comes with the air. It's not like that. It's not like you breathe and then everything comes inside. And we are speaking the language, we are trying to communicate with you, we are pushing it, and we don't receive the same. And it's exhausting, and it's sad as well. Your guys are making it very hard. So, yeah, sometimes it's just easier to eat in the office alone and not make the effort. And after that, things started changing. I think at that point, that point is where I learned they don't do this on purpose.
Yeah.
Is they're just not aware at all, because they were like, Hildemar, if you feel the need to talk to us in English, just do it. We didn't know it was like that. And it was the first time I allowed to be vulnerable in front of them, and I actually got a couple of good friends out of that situation. And yeah, I think is I can understand that's scary for some people to get to that level. is okay, is what it worked for me. But for me, it was a moment that changed.
I think that's another very good perspective, because I have heard this from another friend as well, that it was also in workplace context. So it was also like, if you openly talk to them, and express things in a calm but sort of matter of fact way, hey, this is sort of what's happening. More often than not, that you would be surprised that they're very open, to listening and trying to make a difference. Let's say, right? Try to work on it. So that's very, I think, encouraging to hear. Hopefully, also for the listeners, that there is a way out, guys. Don't feel like you're stuck. So I'm just sort of trying to reflect back. You mentioned about sort of your, let's say, the first challenges at work, and I'm sure there were also challenges sort of on the personal front, right? You're in a new place, you're trying to make new friends, and you're sort of settling in. What I would like to ask is, what helped you through these things, because it's not easy being so far away from family, from friends you've known since, I don't know, since before you were born, right? So what helped you, or what supported you through these times?
I have to do it. I had to do it. No, honestly, I couldn't go back home, and I think this is something that Venezuelans and people from, I don't know, I identify a lot with Syrians or people who come from war places, because we have the largest immigration rate in the world at the moment, or well, I don't know if at the moment given the circumstances, but for many years even higher than Syria, and we don't have a war,
Yeah.
but it's a crisis, right? So it's like I had to tie up my pants and say, you gotta do it, you're gonna become German. And yeah, and then when you gotta do it, when you still you have to have a job because you have to have a visa, then you don't think so much about how is this impacting you emotionally. That comes later, that comes with stability, that comes when you are settled, when everything's fine, and it comes, yeah, I'm feeling exhausted, or I miss, or I don't know, I'm about to burn out. Or maybe I am already. But I think for me at the moment, it was the thought, it was a moment also where my family started to need my help as well. I'm the youngest of four, and I was the first one who emigrated as well. So in theory, I was the one who was outside earning in a currency that is heavier. So I could contribute a little bit also. So yeah, I just had to put on my big girl's pants and just, yeah, go with it.
Sort of just push through, right?
Push through. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't have to, like when I meet people who have a job in English and they want to learn German, I tell them, if you don't need it, if you find it too complicated, just learn the basics so you communicate around, but don't, because it was so painful for me to learn German at this level that I always give the advice, if you don't need it to this level, don't kill yourself. Oh, unless you want, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, but if you don't have to and you don't want to, then
Yeah.
just learn the basics. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also something that's very underestimated, which is, most people who come here already speak two or three languages, right? So German is not even like their second language, right? So it is not that easy. And we do put in a lot of effort, I think, into learning it, and maybe it does help to not put the pressure on yourself to be perfect, right? So maybe your grammar is not perfect, but if you're able to communicate in the first step, then I think that's also a pretty good takeaway. um,
Yes, I think something that at least I acquired from the culture is this being perfect. It starts getting in you, like I also improved my English living in the United States, and then through the masters I
yeah,
also improved it. But I never felt this fear of making a mistake when speaking the language. And there's something here that gives you this fear that it has to be perfect. And then eventually I also said, like, but eventually recently, like maybe 2 years ago, that I
yeah,
said, it's enough, it's good enough. Like, either way, even if I speak correctly, from the moment I say hello, good morning, people already know I'm not German. So they're
yeah,
gonna expect me to make mistakes. Why can I not expect from myself to also make
yeah.
mistakes? So this is, I had to repeat this to myself a lot of times to really let it in.
I think it's very interesting that you said that because I had a very similar experience myself. It was also not very long ago, I think 2 or 3 years ago, where I said, you know, it's good enough. It's okay. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be perfect. It's okay. But do you think that also this sort of confidence, let's say, right, in yourself, to not push yourself to perfection, came from maybe some kind of understanding from your colleagues or from the other people that you're around, who also say, hey, it's okay if you're not speaking perfect German,
I think, this moment I mentioned before of being vulnerable in front of my colleagues, it gave me so many good results that I applied honesty. Then it's funny because in German I'm more honest than in Spanish, for example. I think also culturally people
Yeah.
are ready here to
Hmm.
listen to honesty. So yeah, when I go to meetings, because I work in the three languages,
Yeah.
and I can decide if I want to work in English, but sometimes it's not the case. So I I'm an environmental engineer and I work in the waste management sector. And sometimes when I go to a treatment plant, people don't speak English. So I have to not only to talk, like there's exchange in these meetings. And sometimes when I come out, I go through it with my boss or with the colleague I was in there. Hey, I didn't understand this point. And like this also, because when you speak correctly to a certain level, they think you get 100% of everything. It's like they have higher expectations on you than you have on yourself somehow. And going through this with them, going, through my summary, going through the points I didn't understand, it gives them they can measure what I got, what I'm taking out, what I understood from it, and what is my level somehow. And this has been also very helpful, actually. So being honest here, of course, you have to know how to communicate things,
Yeah.
but being honest, it has really worked for me well, especially in the work context.
I think maybe a small undertone to that is like to sort of realize that you're also working with humans, right? So communication is everything, right?
Exactly, exactly.
I want to come back to something that you mentioned, which was, how you have the highest immigration rate in Venezuela and how the country is in sort of a crisis. How do you cope with this situation, which is, you're far away from family, and they're in a place that's in a crisis situation right now? And of course, you worry about them, right? This is normal for everybody who loves their family. I think most of us do. There is some worry attached to it, and I can imagine that there's also some feeling of helplessness sometimes because you're so far away. How do you cope with this?
Yeah. So this, of course, evolves and it changes. So today is only my parents over there. For the four kids, we are the four of us are living outside. Two of them are in Spain, in Germany, and the other one is in the States. Um, so it has changed. So when and also because it depends on the moment, right? You see that every 2 or 3 years there's big news about Venezuela
Yeah.
on the newspapers, and but that doesn't mean that in between nothing is happening. So when I recently came out when I came to
Ooh.
Germany out of the closet. That is a joke. And just remember, English is my second language. When I first emigrated from Venezuela, there was like I emigrated during these huge protests, huge demonstrations. It was a really, there was a bad crisis at that moment. So there was a lot of the news. And I think one of the first things I did, maybe within the first month of having moved into Germany, was I deleted Twitter from my social medias. I stopped reading the news, which may sound selfish to some people. It may sound that I want to remain ignorant. And yes, in a certain way, yes, but knowingly, I mean consciously, because it wasn't helping me, I so at that moment in Venezuela we had this control exchange of your currency, so I couldn't bring all my money until the government authorizes that. So I just came with a certain amount of money. I had to find a job in a country that I don't speak the language, and I had to do my master's, and I graduated like 4 years before I started my master's. So there was so many things that I had forgotten, and I still wanted to do good. I wanted to have good grades, because for me, since I emigrated, was okay, I'm studying there because it's going to be my door to the workplace. So it was just too much, Sanchi. It was the university, the system over here, the language, the colds, because I come from the tropic, the finding a job. How do I find a job? How do I, like I have money until, I don't know, I arrived in
Yeah.
September and I had money for like until January or something
Yeah.
like that. So I had to find a job or jobs. I don't know. So it was just so much that I thought I either carry with this bag or I just let it go and I just carry with this bag, and that's what I decided. So that was at the beginning, and I kind of like continue carry on with that. When there were moments of, I don't know, there's no power for days, or I don't know, demonstrations again, where you get also your hopes up, things are gonna change. Those moments were devastating actually. I don't know how I managed, if you ask me. I mean, right now we are in a situation, right?
Yeah.
We had elections in July, and we have the proofs that we won, but the government,
Yeah.
which is not a government, they're just criminals on power. They just don't want to acknowledge. They don't want this change to happen. And the first month, I could barely focus to work, and I mean, I also have a very good boss. He's very understanding. He's very human. So he's like, okay, if you can only work 4 hours a day, then just do it. It's okay. Eventually, I also don't read the news every day. I think for me, this disconnection really helps. Yeah, but it's something, I don't know, every time something news come, I react to it in a certain way and then I just let it go. I don't know, I wouldn't know how to tell exactly what do I do. I think I would say disconnecting myself from the situation.
I think I think you're not giving enough credit to yourself. So, for those of you who don't know Ilde, maybe I can also give you a little hint, and that is, at least from the outside, which is how much I could see, was that a very good quality was, or is, in fact, that when you really think that it's too much, and you think, okay, I cannot do this on my own anymore, you ask for help. And I think this is very underrated. I think it's very important, especially as internationals, right? To reach out to friends, to, if you need professional help, to your colleagues, right? Like you said, your boss is very understanding, which means that he's somehow, to some extent, aware that you are facing some, let's say, troubling times. Put it in a very nice way. So I think maybe to add to your answer, which is disconnection, also asking for help, and maybe that all comes together as really taking care of yourself, because you're of no help to anybody else or of use to anyone back home if you're not taking care of yourself, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It's true that you bring that up because I do ask for help. That's true. Yeah, just as I am a social person, I'm a person that likes to be surrounded by my community. And yeah, thank you for bringing that because it's true. Yes, I do ask. I'm not scared of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very important. Especially because we're outside, away from families and the community that we know, in a different culture, different surroundings and different systems. Even like, I don't know about you, but I think the paperwork really takes a toll on internationals. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. After you
So
become German, then it gets easier.
yeah, there's a long road to that. Yeah, so yeah, asking for help and sort of maintaining your community is also very helpful in these times, even if they don't come from your background, even if they're not from your place. I think a lot of us are capable of empathizing.
Yeah. And I think with the years, you kind of, that's what I meant with it evolves. So I think with the years, you've built a life over here and you start forgetting more that coming back is an option, because you've made a life over here. Still, the thought of not being able to come back if I wanted to is super painful. I
Yeah.
mean, I also have to say, Sanchi, that there's times where I have like all these emotions on my chest and then I just allow myself a day of sadness and just cry and just let it out. And yeah, that's how I feel and I allow it to exist. I allow myself to feel it. I also do therapy, like I started doing therapy a few years already, and it also helps me to talk, to discover things, to have the tools to allow myself to feel it is something that I have to learn. I had to learn, for example, and it's super helpful. It's super
Yeah.
helpful, and to communicate this to my parents as well, because, for example, at the beginning when I would tell them I miss you, I mean, I have these parents that are way older than me because, I mean, my oldest sister, she's 13 years older than me.
Yeah.
So they are this generation of parents that they don't show emotions, right? And my mom, when I told her I miss you, I miss home, she wouldn't tell me I also miss you. No, she would be like, you have a life, you have a nice life over there. You have to be strong. And it's like, yeah, maybe I'm a bit today I'm
Yeah.
tired of being strong,
Yeah.
today I don't want to be strong. I know I am, yes, in general I am,
Yeah.
but in between I am also allowed to be weak. And
Yeah.
I mean, crying is not weak,
Yeah.
and feeling it is also not being weak.
True.
Yeah.
And you need to recharge, right? So you need to take a break from being
Yes,
strong.
exactly. Exactly.
That's also a very good takeaway. Maybe now let's go back to the beginning where we talked about, that you moved to Germany from Venezuela. Was there a reason that you chose Germany, or was there like I don't know, some kind of motivation or some kind of dream that you had that brought you here, or
So I never thought about Germany, like really never. As a South American country, we have the tendency to look up to the United States. So I actually had lived there for a year. I had also admission to a master's program over there. And then I couldn't leave yet because at that year, or for the last 2 years in Venezuela, at that moment, it was pain in the ass to, I can say bad words, right?
yeah, it's okay.
Okay, it was a pain in the ass to get a passport. So I was waiting for the renewal of my passport for over 8 months, and that's why I hadn't gone yet to the States again. And in that process, I read on the newspaper that Germany is offering master's degrees in English. And I checked out the list and I found this master degree that we did, this master program that we did. And it was in English, it was cheaper. And then I started researching, like, what kind of visas do you get afterwards? What's the employment rate? Like, I started
Yeah.
informing myself, and I saw that the chances were better in Germany than in the States. I applied 2 days. So when I read this, I applied the same day I read this, and it was 2 days before the deadline. So I contacted the director of the program via email, and I said, "Hey, my original documents are not going to be there on time. Can I scan everything and send it?" And then I posted, and she was like, "Yeah, okay, you can do that." And I did it, and I got admitted in April, and in September I was here. So I had no idea, Santi, what I was getting into. I had no idea
Yeah.
how complicated was the language. I was running away from my country.
Yeah.
And I don't have many people in Venezuela. Venezuela is a very diverse country in the sense of multicultural,
Yeah.
because there's many Arabs, also people from South America, Europeans. So I'm not one of these people. So I needed something that opened me the door for the for the workplace, right? So, and I thought a master degree is gonna do
Yeah.
that to me. So yeah, I was just somehow running away, and I got here, and I did have this super strong feeling like I'm gonna make it. Germany is gonna be the place. And yes, look, it's
Yeah.
10 years. I have a comfortable job that I really like. I live, like I'm growing
Yeah.
professionally. That's this feeling that I had when I came here, and it has happened. So yes, you struggle. Just there's a struggle, but there's also rewards in the process.
So, what was it that gave you this confidence that yes, this country is going to be my country, sort of thing. Like this is where I'm going to build a community, or this is where I'm going to grow professionally or personally. What gave you? Because you started with the culture shock of, oh my god, everybody's so closed off. right? So from there to here, what was it that
Yeah.
kept you?
So I think I've never believed that Germany is the place where I'm gonna make community or yeah, when it comes to emotional attachment to the country, I think I still struggle with it, to be honest. Even though I enjoy the quality of life, but this demand of perfection and the weather really hits me. And but I had it I knew here is the place where I'm going to grow professionally. And to be honest, when I this feeling that I knew I was going to make it was always in the professional aspect. I never thought how was my life going to be in the personal and emotional aspect. Never thought about it. I came with one goal was
Yeah.
get my degree, get a job, get the citizenship. Then everything is going to be fine. And yeah, so in this aspect, yes, I got everything in the personal aspect also, I've grown also emotionally here and personally here.
Well, that's also a good thing. So you mentioned that you knew professionally you would grow. So I think a part of it is, your own determination, but that you came with, right? That you are going to make it. And the other part is either you fought against the system, right, to make it, or you had enough support from the system to grow. So either the system was nurturing or it really made it so difficult that you really had to fight. So maybe I think my question is, which of it was it? Or was it like a little bit of both?
It was both, definitely. I think, I mean, this confidence is not only that I had it in me
Yeah.
and that's it. As I told you, I researched what's the step, there's this looking for a job visa. Then once you get a job, you have the working visa and you have several versions over there. And some of these can get you to get the citizenship faster. And with this looking for a job visa, you also have benefits that sometimes people don't know or they don't inform themselves. And I, I'm very structured in this sense. Like I draw my goal and then I kind of like break it down into the steps that I have to make or the bureaucracy I have to go through to get there. And that's what I did. And as I told you, I'm a very social person. So I asked, what did you do? Where did you go to? And then, for example, I found out that the job center gives to people who are looking for a job the opportunity to get a German course for free. And I did that. So I got my German. So, like, the whole B2 level was paid by the state until, like, like if you have a mini job it's
Yeah.
100% paid. But I remember at that moment, first I had a hivi, and so I work as an
Yeah.
assistant at the university, and this I had so many hours that then I was above the mini job level, but I paid only 25% of the course. And this is, I mean learning the language is not only effort, it's also
Yeah.
money. And so that was great, and I got the test. And so there's definitely support by the state as well. Just go online, search online, talk to people, talk to internationals. Like I have faced people who've been living here for 10 years and they don't know how to become Germans,
Yeah.
or they don't know how to get the Niederlassungserlaubnis. And I'm like, how are you still going every year, every 2 years to the Ausländerbehörde? I also have to say, depending on where you are, the relationship or the experience with the Ausländerbehörde can be horrible, can
Yeah.
be good, can be neutral. I think when we first got here, it was still okay. But then 2 years after, it got
Yeah.
really bad. So, and it has stayed like that. So yeah, I think definitely, the job center also gets you into the, I don't know what is job verse,
Like the job market somehow. Yeah.
yeah, like the job market. So I also got a coach to
Mm-hmm.
help me out with improving my CV, training for interviews, and that was paid also by the job center. So yeah, I think what would be my takeaway from this? Go online, talk to other
Yeah.
internationals, go to the welcoming center of your city,
Mm.
go to the job center, and just try to find out what options do you have, what can you count on, because it is true that Germany needs professional
Yeah.
people, so there's the tools that you can count on.
Yeah. I think that's it's a very good point that you have to take initiative, right? That it's not going to be spoon fed, but that once you have informed yourself, there's a lot of support available that you can use, right?
Yes.
So, welcome back, Ilde. Thank you for agreeing to come back online as a guest to re-record. The last question, which we unfortunately missed out. It was a very good question. So, for the benefit also of our listeners, the last question was if you had to build a complete picture of how it is to live as an international, how would you do it? How would you explain to someone how it is really to live as an international?
How is it to live as an international? After 10 years living abroad, of course, there's um, different moments of how I felt about it. And I've also lived in different countries. So these have been different experiences. And the age also has an influence, of course. Uh, so if I talk about my experience in the States, for example, I was 23 and it was the first time I was living without my parents and that I tasted freedom, and I also worked, and my studies there were not fully financed by my parents. So it was this load of responsibility that I also had, but living with friends in a fun environment. There I got to know also was like my first time to interact with different cultures, because there were all these people from other countries other than the States. I learned also that in South America we speak the same language but different slang, for example. So that was like my first contact, and it left me kind of like hungry for more. And then when I came to Germany, I kept experiencing that. We've mentioned that my process here has been hard, but what what has made it beautiful at the same time is this community that I have built, these friendships. Like I remember to think, um, I'm a person of faith, and I remember to think like, wow, I have these battles, but God also sends me the right people to go through them with. And that's, I think, is because we are both experiencing the same. We are all adapting. We are all living without our families, and this brings us together, so we grow together. So in that sense, it has also been a growing experience. Definitely opened my mind. With all the conflict in Venezuela, I actually kind of like ignored what is happening in the world, and then I made friends with you guys who are also very well informed, and I was like, oh my god, I was so ignorant about what's going on in the world. And it gave me this kind of like shake of placing myself in the world, and also made me more empathic, actually. I'm a very emotional person. Like, I feel a lot. When I have an emotion, I feel it, and you're gonna know it. And this also reflects on my empathy towards others, because I can maybe not feel the same. I will never know that if I feel the same, but I feel like my emotion gets to a level where I empathize a lot. And yeah, so I would say living as an international is it has its pros and cons. I don't think I could have stayed in Venezuela, for example, not only because of the situation, because also the mindset over there. I remember already feeling like an outsider, like um, not necessarily that I don't belong, but to belong, I have to play a role somehow. Um, so that's the beautiful thing about being an international, right? That, I mean, once you know your identity, then you go along with it,
Yeah.
and you find the place where you can be that identity. Um, and so you have like this best of both worlds somehow. You get, when you go home, you get to be that person who made you as well.
Yeah.
It roots you, it grounds
Hmm.
you again. But then after a time, it's like, okay, I can go back to who I really am. And I think that's something that not everybody has, and
Oh,
is
yeah.
great. And yeah, so I would say we were talking before a little bit about this with building this community uh, that you made by your own somehow. Uh, it's like you make your own family who with whom you don't have to pretend to be in a certain way because they already met you
Yeah.
the way you are, and that's just beautiful. And so yeah, that's um my experience as an international,
Hmm.
other than all the, I wouldn't call it drama, but all the circumstances that
Hmm.
has taken me till here. It has
Hmm.
been a road, but it's been accompanied
Yeah.
also with beautiful moments, beautiful
Yeah.
people, growing experiences, mind opening, and uh, it has even given me the empathy to understand a person like super squared and not open
Hmm.
minded at all. It's like, yeah, I also understand your setting because I
Yeah.
come from that setting, but I also understand the other setting
Yeah.
because and then this is great. Imagine
Yeah.
how great this is,
Yeah.
that you have that capacity, right? And
Hmm.
um, yeah, so I don't know. I
Yeah.
think that's my my summary of how to
Yeah.
be an international. This is a open mind experience,
Yeah.
mind open
Yeah.
open mind experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it was some very good points that you made, and I can definitely relate with a lot of it. I'm sure a lot of our listeners can also relate with a lot of points that you made. You know, especially where you say that because we're all here, kind of without our families, without our friends, and our support system, our support net,
Hmm.
let's say, we become each other's support net,
Hmm.
right? Like we become each other's family, social
Hmm.
circles, friends, and so on. And I think that's probably one of the strongest uniting factors.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, and that also makes you kind of open-minded because you become more empathic, you become more appreciative to each other's situations, and
Hmm.
how they handle it, right?
Exactly, exactly, because we are all going through the same,
Yeah.
like the integration period, the visa period, the looking for a job period, the moving, so many
God.
moves.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, so maybe the difference in times might be a bit different, but like maybe we moved from the dorms around the same time,
Yeah.
but then you moved so
Uh-huh.
many times and the other one as well, and
Yes.
so we all understand each other.
Yeah.
And I think maybe now something very valuable is to think like we only lived together 1.5 years and
Mm-hmm.
we've been friends for 10 years, and I
Yes.
think I think that it speaks for how intense this
Yeah.
experience is.
Yeah.
That is kind of like, at least the way I see it, comparing it to that friendship that you build when you're a kid for your whole
Mm-hmm.
life. I think for us, it only took one and a half
Yeah.
years of a very intense experience.
Yes.
And that's also beautiful as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an amazing point that you made. That's, you don't always need a lifetime to build friendships that last a
Mm-hmm.
lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is one of most beautiful parts of living abroad as an
Mm-hmm.
international, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
So I'm very glad again that we were able to re-record this part, because it would have been a great loss if we were not able to do that. So thank
Mm.
you again very much for agreeing to come over again and on the podcast. And yeah, I hope you have a great weekend, because guys, we're doing this on the weekend.
No, Santi, thank you for having me. Thank you for, yeah, giving me the chance. I hope it helps someone or
Yeah,
is informative enough to
yeah,
someone, or yeah, I was glad to be part of your project.
yeah. Thank you very much. And yeah, a very good weekend to our listeners as well.